David in Mexico. You're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about?
Hey, how you doing today?
Doing good. What did you want to talk to us about today?
My wife is in her 60s. We're both atheists. And I start to wonder at times when one of us dies, there's a funeral. It's not going to be my funeral because I won't be there. But if at my wife's funeral, and she has a number of theist relatives who would be there, I'm kind of wondering and concerned if I hear a bunch of them saying, oh, she's in a better place, she's gone to be with God, she's in heaven, crap like that, I'm afraid I might just lose it. And I really should be talking to them ahead of time and saying, you know, please respect my wishes and trying to think how best to do that. I wonder if you have thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is actually something that has come up a couple times on this show. And I think it's smart of you to think about this ahead of time, because I know there are a lot of people who in the moment are already dealing with a whole lot of grief and a whole lot of loss. And then they have to contend with this for the first time. And it's overwhelming. It's a whole lot of stuff. And so for me, I think you can go at this two ways, and maybe a combination of these is most appropriate. On the one hand, yes, if you and your wife have plans for what that end of life looks like, whether that's, you know, the days or months before, or the funeral, or how you talk about each other afterwards, all of that you have the right to ask for. You can write that in your will. You can express it to individuals. Hey, this is what I want. This is what I don't. And then it's up to them to decide whether or not they want to respect that. And if they don't, then that tells you a whole lot about who you need to worry about interacting with afterwards. Yeah. On the other hand, I know that if I were to go to a funeral, heaven forbid, of somebody in my family, I would have to sit there and squirm so hard, because I would be the only person who was feeling that loss in the same way, because everybody else is going to be talking about they're in a better place, they're with God, this was part of the plan, God needed another angel, all of these terrible, terrible platitudes. That would be the message that everyone around me was dealing with. And you know what? That's how they need to deal. It is a coping mechanism. And while if it were my funeral or the funeral of a partner or a child or, you know, anyone that I had direct say in, yeah, I'd probably try to minimize that as much as I could. But I would also need to understand that they are also going through that grief and that grieving process. And this is something that they are clinging to for dear life, like a life raft in the ocean. They are desperate, and these things help them. So as long as it does not interfere with you or your boundaries or your ability to grieve for your wife eventually, should it happen, then I say make sure you're dealing with that, making sure that that circle around you is secure and that you're not letting people in who will hurt you or say things that are insensitive. And then let other people grieve how they need to grieve. And if there's some overlap and some conflict, just be empathetic and trust that they will be too.
To a degree.
Yeah.
To a degree. When my grandmother passed, my uncle turned her funeral into an altar call and stood before us. And during the funeral, oh yeah, no, I'm going into my own family on this one, because I'll never forgive you for this. Not you, but my uncle, who instead of
David.
instead of making it a, you know, we're here to celebrate the life of my grandmother, it was, she's watching you in heaven right now and she wants to see you. He held the memory of my grandmother hostage, that we needed to turn ourselves over to Christ right now, or we'd never see her again. And ultimately, look at it this way, man. If you walked up to somebody religious and they lost somebody, would you stand there in their face and say, you're never going to see them again, there's no heaven, there's no hell, they're just rotting in the ground? Would you do that to someone?
Yeah.
You would?
And the flip side of this is that I was at a funeral about 2 years ago of a relative's father who had died. And the minister, priest, whatever you call him, used this as an opportunity to, I felt like he was standing on this man's coffin and using it as a soapbox.
Yeah.
And through the lame proof of the existence of God. And he berated the atheists in the crowd, including me.
And here's the thing, man, is you would not do that to another person. I'm assuming that you are saying no to that earlier question. You wouldn't yell at somebody and tell them that, it's just not the right time. It's inconsiderate. And in as much as you wouldn't do that to somebody else, if somebody does that to you, they deserve just as much respect, which is none at all.
Yeah.
They can go fuck off.
If that were to happen at my wife's wedding, I would be quite angry.
And you know what? If they knowingly were doing that, then they deserve that anger. I'm sorry. I understand they need to process their grief too.
I fully agree with that. If they know that they're doing that and they are overstepping that boundary, then they deserve what they get, and they do not get to play respectability politics and say, "How dare you be disrespectful to me?" No, they started it.
No, agreed. I think these are things that you probably knew, but if that affirmation helps, then I hope that people can come back and listen to this and hear that you're not only are you not alone in feeling that way, but you're supported.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
I did want to point out a few quick things before we move on to the next call. Number one, if you have the time and you want to volunteer, there are volunteer opportunities for you. We needed to move to members only during the live chat, and I miss seeing the live chat scrolling by and everybody's excitement. That's something that I feel like people come here to do, and if we don't have the mods, enough people to staff that, then we're asking a very small group of people to do something that is very, very, very difficult, and it's just cruel. So if you do have the time and are dependable, and not only that, hey, maybe you don't want to be a mod, maybe you don't want to volunteer with the ACA, but you do want to do something good with your time, consider volunteering with Recovering from Religion. The Hotline Project is always in need of volunteers. And the fact that we do get messages from RFR saying, hey, we've got a couple more people from Talk Heathen, that's amazing. Please, can we keep doing that? If you want to volunteer your time, they will train you, and even if you've got one weekend a month or maybe a couple hours each week, whatever the case is, it is absolutely appreciated, and tell them Talk Heathen sent you.